After accidentally using my brother's supplementary card to buy a coffee, my future sister-in-law took a screenshot of the transaction and posted it in the family group chat. Home sweet home. You use my boyfriend's supplementary card to buy yourself a drink. That's really classy. I can tell the innocent little sister act when I see one. Coffee. Seriously, we all know what kind of message that sends. Without even asking for an explanation, my parents just ranted at me nonstop. My brother immediately canceled the supplementary card. Even after all that, my sister-in-law just would not let it go. Where's the money? You used my boyfriend's card, pay it back now. I scrolled through years of bank transfers between my brother and myself, took a screenshot of every single one, and sent them into the chat. Next second, everyone in the family except my brother were stunned. Right after my shower, I grabbed my freshly ordered iced latte by the door. After taking a single sip, my phone started flashing like crazy. On the coffee table, 99 plus unread messages could be found on Home Sweet Home. I tapped in and got instantly buried under a flood of tags and accusations. Julia Goth, my future sister-in-law, had sent several screenshots. It contained my order, the payment details, and everything clearly marked paid with Alan's supplementary card. She even circled it in bright red, as if anyone might miss it. Well, aren't you quick in ruining my mood? I was just celebrating getting my prenatal results. And then I saw her using my baby daddy's card to buy herself a coffee. What impeccable timing. I called her my future sister-in-law because she was pregnant with my brother's baby. But they were not yet married. My mind went blank for a second. I suddenly remembered the card I had used when I ordered. It had been a careless mistake. Oh no, I hurried to explain myself. I really didn't notice and used the wrong card. Sorry, Julia, I'll pay you back now. I immediately transferred $10 to Julia. Almost instantly, Julia accepted it. However, she clearly was not done. So you used the wrong card. Why is your brother's supplementary card even linked to your phone? Don't you know I'm carrying your family's precious heir and might need that money? Are you really trying to dip into the baby's formula fund for a coffee? That stung. It had just been a few bucks for an iced latte. My parents were practically worshipping her like a queen just because she was carrying the family's long-awaited baby boy. It's just $10 and I've sent it to you. Suppressed my anger and replied, iced latte. Don't play dumb, sweetheart. Since when is that just a drink? Everybody knows it's the go-to order for clingy couples playing footsie under the table. Nice try. But your little scheme is loud and clear even through the screen. I knew he's taken, yet you still pulled that. Oops. I used the supplementary card by accident. Routine. Your fake innocent act disgusts me. You're not a teenager anymore. Learn some boundaries. What little scheme was she even talking about? I just sent a voice message. It was one iced latte, one accidental click. What exactly is my little scheme here, Julia? What's it going to take for you to let it go? Then I sent another text message at Alan. Say something. Weren't you the one who told me to link the card in case of emergencies? My brother Alan Isaac finally stepped in. However, instead of an explanation, he just sent a screenshot. Supplementary card access has been revoked for this user. He followed up with a message, Sophia, knock it off. Just for words, but it felt like a slap on the face. Julia immediately followed up here that even your brother's telling you to knock it off. Girls from modest families like you really shouldn't be pulling these cheap, indecent little tricks. She's right, Sophia. An aunt who had not said anything in the group chat in ages suddenly chimed in. Julia's carrying your brother's baby. It's tough on her. Show some sense. It's just $10. Stop making a scene. It's giving everyone a headache. An uncle joined in. Your brother has canceled the card. Just listen to him and get over it. My parents' messages popped up next. The first was from my father. Why are you kicking up a fuss? Alan's got enough trouble finding someone. He finally found Julia, and she's carrying our family's heir. You're a grown woman with a job. Why do you need to be using your brother's supplementary card? Can't you afford to buy your own coffee? My mother's message came right after. Sophia, I know you've always got your own ideas about things, but this really wasn't intentional, right? Your brother finally got engaged, and you just had to order a coffee with his card to annoy your sister-in-law. I replied immediately. I told you it was an accident. I didn't check the payment method when who knows? Maybe Alan's last few relationships fell apart because of your little mistakes. My mom's words made my fingers go numb from anger. I sent a voice message to yell at them without holding back. It's just one cheap coffee. What dirty thoughts are you all thinking? He's my brother. What's wrong with linking his supplementary card? Buying a coffee isn't a crime. How are his failed relationships my fault now? You guys blew it yourselves. Whenever he brought a girlfriend home, before she could even introduce herself, you were already grilling her about her parents' pensions. jobs and property, like some. IRS audit. Alan's got no car, no house, no savings. And you don't think that's the problem? God forbid a woman has standards. If you were you, would you marry him? I finished in one breath. If Julia had not been pregnant, would they even approve of this relationship? Ungrateful brat. My dad sent a 60-second voice message. How dare you talk to us like that? We sacrificed everything to raise you, and this is what we get? An ungrateful. I did not finish listening. Julia chimed in with a snort. Oh wow. Been criticizing your parents, now you're something else. You really know how to stir up family drama, don't you? Alan stayed silent as ever. An aunt who usually kept to herself piped up. Julia, don't get worked up, and Sophia, just drop it already. The other relatives were online, but they were just watching in silence. Some even messaged me privately. Wow, Sophia, big family drama, huh? No other family can turn a fight over a $10 iced latte into World War III. Seeing my own family become a laughingstock, I was about ready to ignore it all, shut my phone, and go to bed. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Julia had tagged me in the family group. I opened it and saw a few screenshots. Sophia, do you have no shame? Sending suggestive photos to your own brother. Are you trying to disgust me? I had a bad feeling about this. I zoomed in on the screenshots. The photos were familiar, a tasteful modern take on a classic dress. Pair of heels to match. Those are things that I carefully picked out for her as a birthday gift. How on earth were these photos suggestive? Julia, look closer. Those were supposed to be your birthday gifts. I wasn't sure about your size, so I asked Alan. He's the one who told me to send the photos. Can't you read? The messages are right there. No sooner had I sent that than Julia sent another screenshot. Was part of my chat with Alan, but the one important line where he typed "send me the photos" was completely blurred out with pixelated blocks. Only the dress photos remained. Julia quickly followed up with a sarcastic message. In that case, why didn't you send them to me? Why your brother? I try to keep my cool. How many times have I sent you a friend request? Did you ever accept? He's my brother. What's wrong with asking him his wife's size? Meanwhile, the relatives who did not know the full story started chiming in. Aunt Mary. Oh, Sophia, even between siblings you need to have some boundaries. Aunt Philippa. Yes, sending photos like that to your brother is improper. Mark Sophia. That's really not okay. What really hurt me were my parents' messages right after. Dad, I can't believe I raised such a shameless brat. You're an embarrassment, Mom, you stupid girl. Apologized to Julia. Absolutely not. Apologizing would be like admitting I actually did something wrong. I immediately pulled up my private chat with Alan. Alan, you've got to clear things up in the group. Things aren't what Julia's making them out to be. You're the one who told me to send the photos. And she kept rejecting my friend requests. Clear this up now, relax, it's not that big of a deal. Just don't argue with Julia. Just let her vent a bit, and she'll let it go. It won't cost you anything. Just let it roll off your back. His flippant, careless response completely set me off. Let it roll off my back. Take a look at the group chat right now. They're calling me a disgusting harlot who throws herself at her brother. Give it another day, and they'll be accusing me of incest. Clinging to a tiny shred of hope, I hoped he would come to his senses. Ding, not a text. 2 images popped up. I frowned and opened them. My mind went completely blank. The photo showed a blurry figure showering behind a frosted glass door. The silhouette was unmistakable. That was me. You took pictures of me in the shower. Why did you do that? What the hell is wrong with you? Alan's reply came fast. Don't worry about the why. Then came another message. Just go along with your sister-in-law's wishes. She's the only girlfriend I've got if you drive her away. I'm going to make your life a living hell. That's illegal, Alan. He did not even flinch. If you scare my girlfriend off, I don't care if I go to jail. I'll make sure you were. I told myself to hold it in and protect whatever shred of reputation I had left. I was going to stop him from actually ruining my life, maybe because I had gone silent. Julia thought she had me cornered. She made a grand announcement in the family group that she was engaged to Alan, which meant I had no choice but to go home. At the dinner table, Julia glanced at my mom, Maggie. I don't have many demands for the engagement, but we do need a new home. Surely you understand. My mother caught on immediately. Sophia, you've been working for a few years now. Didn't you buy that little apartment of yours? Great location too. Well, Alan's in a bind right now. Just transfer the title over to Alan and Julia for their new home. We're family. It's only right for a sister to help out her brother. The spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered on the plate. What I could not believe what I heard. You're asking me to give them my place as their new home? I shot a look at my brother. He just kept shoveling food into his mouth like none of it had anything to do with him. I looked at Julia. She wore a smug and entitled smile. There was even a flicker of triumphant defiance in her eyes. No, I firmly refused. That apartment is mine. I worked hard for years, pinched every penny, saved every dime to buy that place. Why should I hand it over for Alan as his new home? He's got 2 hands and a paycheck. He can buy his own place. Julia's expression turned dark when she heard me. Oh, come on. Who's going to believe that a young girl like you could afford to buy an apartment? Where did that money really come from? She swept her gaze over me, dripping with insinuation. Your brother's been slipping you cash behind our backs for years, hasn't he? Or worse, maybe he's had you doing God knows what. You bought that place with his money, and now that he actually needs it, you won't give it back. I was about to fire back when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Alan. Don't say anything if you argue back. I'll send those photos to everyone in the group chat. Want to save what's left of your dignity? Shut up and do what mom and dad say. It was another disgusting, gutless threat. I thought, that's it, I've had enough of all of you. Even if it means dragging everyone down with me to hell, I'm going to do it. I gripped my phone tight. I shouted, go ahead. Send them right now. Let's see who crashes and burns. First, me losing my reputation, or you losing your freedom in jail. The words landed like a bomb. The whole dining room went dead silent. My parents stared at me with wide, shocked eyes. Julia froze. That smug look on her face just shattered. My brother looked like he had seen a ghost. No one except my brother knew what had suddenly set me off. After yelling that, I did not even glance at their shocked faces. You think my apartment money came from Alan? Take a good look then. I earned every cent here myself. Alan had absolutely nothing to do with any of it since they loved sending screenshots to the family group chat so much I pulled it up. I selected every screenshot of the bank transfers between Alan and me. I dumped them all into the chat. The whole family opened the screenshots and went completely speechless. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. In the Home Sweet Home group chat, the screenshots of the bank transfer sat like a row of unexploded bombs. For years, the narrative in the family had been that Alan was the successful, generous older brother who constantly threw a lifeline to his struggling younger sister. My parents had spent years reinforcing this lie, using it to justify why every family gathering centered around Alan's achievements, Alan's comfort, and Alan's future. But the ledger did not lie. May 14th, 2022, Sophia to Alan, $15,000 memo. Alan's credit card payoff. September 3rd, 2023, Sophia to Alan, $22,000 memo. Alan's rental deposit. December 25th, 2024, Sophia to Alan, $8,000 memo. Mom's medical bill, which Alan had proudly claimed to the entire relative circle that he had paid entirely out of his own pocket. And the list went on. Page after page of bank transfers dating back nearly 5 years, totaling a staggering $184,500. Every single dollar flowed in one direction, from my hard-earned savings account into Alan's bottomless pocket. And Alan's transfers to me? There were exactly 3. One for $50, which was followed 12 hours later by a request to borrow $200. Another for $15. And the last one was a $10 transfer with the memo. Happy birthday, don't spend it. All in one place. For 3 full minutes, no one typed a single word in the group chat. The green online indicators hovered next to my aunts' and uncles' profiles like silent, staring eyes. At the dinner table, the atmosphere turned frozen. The smug, triumphant smile on Julia's face slowly began to stiffen. She looked down at her phone, her thumb rapidly scrolling through the endless stream of screenshots I had just dumped. Her eyes widened, darting between the numbers on the screen and Alan, who was sitting next to her. Alan had stopped chewing. His fork was suspended halfway to his mouth, his face completely drained of color. My mother's phone buzzed in her hand. She stared at it, her lips trembling. Sophia, what is the meaning of this? Why did you doctor these images? Doctor them? I let out a cold, sharp laugh. Go ahead and call the bank, Mom. Better yet, let's have Alan log into his mobile banking app right now and show us his transaction history. Let's see if those $154,500 in loans, none of which have ever been repaid, are doctored. You lent him this much money? Julia's voice pitched high, cracking slightly. She turned to Alan, her fingers gripping his forearms so tightly her knuckles turned white. Alan, what is she talking about? You told me you bought that downtown apartment. You told me you put down the down payment and let her live there because she couldn't afford rent. You told me you had $500,000 in your savings account. Alan swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. Julia, babe, don't. Listen to her. She's just trying to cause trouble because she's jealous. She's manipulating the screenshots. I am manipulating nothing, I interrupted, my voice steady, cutting through his. Pathetic lies like a knife. Every single transaction has a federal reference number. If you think they're fake, we can call the police and report financial fraud right now. Or we can talk about how you've been leeching off me to fund your rich young man lifestyle, buying designer bags for your girlfriends, and renting luxury cars to impress Julia's family. Julia's face went from pale to a furious, mottled red. Alan, is this true?
The
Porsche you drove to meet my parents, you rented it? With her money?
No.
No, Julia, I swear. Alan panicked. He turned his eyes toward me, and the panic in his expression instantly morphing into a venomous, desperate rage. His hand slid into his pocket. Under the table, my phone vibrated. I pulled it out. A private message from Alan had just popped up. Alan, you stupid bitch. You think you're so clever? I'm sending the photos to the family group right now. Let's see how your precious reputation handles being exposed as a disgusting exhibitionist. Delete those transfer screenshots and tell everyone it was a joke, or your life is over. I looked up from my screen. Alan was staring at me, his thumb hovering over his phone screen, a sick, desperate grin beginning to form at the corners of his mouth.
He thought he had me.
He thought that a woman's modesty and fear of public shame would always triumph over her need for justice. He thought I would bend the knee, give up my apartment, and play the submissive, quiet sister just to keep his dirty little secret safe. He didn't know that when you push someone to the absolute brink, they stop caring about the fall. Go ahead, I said aloud. My voice wasn't a whisper. It was loud, clear, and carried across the entire dining room. The table went quiet again. My father frowned. Sophia, who are you talking to? What are you saying go ahead to? I'm talking to your golden boy, I said, pointing directly at Alan. He just
Texted me.
He's threatening to post non-consensual photos of me showering, photos he secretly took through the frosted glass of my bathroom door, to the family group chat if I don't delete the bank statements and hand over my apartment to him. What? My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Julia froze, her eyes darting between Alan and me. Alan's face went completely purple. You're lying. Shut up. Shut your mouth. Sophia. Am I lying, Alan? I unlocked my phone, turned the screen around, and held it up for everyone at the table to see. The private chat was clear as day.
His
threat was spelled out in black and white, right alongside the blurry, disgusting silhouette of me in the shower. Oh my God, Julia whispered, instinctively pulling her chair a few inches away from Alan. You took those photos when you stayed at my place last month because your landlord locked you out for unpaid rent, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of disgust and cold fury. You kept them as insurance in case I ever stopped giving you money, and now you're trying to use them to extort my apartment from me. Sophia, that's enough. My father slammed his fist onto the table, making the plates rattle. This is family business. How can you talk about such shameful things out loud? Even if Alan made a mistake, he's your brother. You're dragging our family name through the mud. Your family name? I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Your family name was dragged through the mud the moment you raised a thief, a parasite, and a voyeuristic blackmailer. And you too, I looked at my parents, are his enablers. You wanted my apartment? You wanted to give it to your precious heir? I stood up, grabbing my coat. Sophia, sit down. My mother pleaded, her eyes darting toward the front door as if she was afraid the neighbors might hear. We can talk about this. Alan, apologize to your sister. Sophia, we didn't know. We just thought you were doing well. It's too late for talking, I said calmly. And it's certainly too late for an apology. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my second phone, the one I used for work. I pressed a button, illuminating the screen. It showed an active call to emergency services. I dialed 911 3 minutes ago, right when Alan sent the blackmail text. I told the silent room. The dispatcher has been listening to this entire conversation. The charge is extortion, non-consensual sharing of intimate imagery and stalking. They've already dispatched a patrol car to this address. Alan's phone slipped from his hand, clattering against his dinner plate before splashing into his bowl of soup. You called the cops? On your own, brother? You're not my brother, I said coldly. You're just a criminal who happens to share my DNA. Within 5 minutes, the sharp, red and blue lights of a police cruiser began to flash through the dining room windows, painting the walls in rhythmic, haunting shades of crimson and blue. The arrest of Alan Isaac was not quiet. When the two officers knocked on the door, my father tried to block them, babbling about a family misunderstanding and sibling rivalry. But I walked right past him, handed the officers my phone with the exported chat logs, and pointed directly at Alan. He is in possession of illegally obtained voyeuristic images of me, and he just attempted to use them to extort real estate property from me. I told the officers clearly. The texts are right there. He has the device on him. When the officer asked Alan to step forward and hand over his phone, Alan lost his mind. He lunged across the table to grab his phone from the soup bowl, trying to smash it against the hardwood floor to destroy the evidence. The officers were faster. Within seconds, Alan was slammed against the dining room wall, his arms pinned behind his back, the heavy metallic click of handcuffs echoing through the house. "Sophia, you monster. You're ruining his life," my mother shrieked, throwing herself at me, trying to scratch at my face. An officer quickly stepped between us, warning her that she would be arrested for assault if she didn't step back. Julia stood in the corner of the room, her hands pressed flat against her stomach, watching the entire spectacle with a mixture of horror and cold calculation. She didn't shed a single tear for Alan. She didn't try to stop the police. She was simply watching her ticket to a comfortable, upper-middle class life get dragged out the front door in handcuffs. As the police led Alan down the driveway, the neighbors opened their doors, whispering and pointing. I stood on the porch, watching him get stuffed into the back of the cruiser. He was crying now, screaming my name, begging me to tell the police it was a joke. I didn't say a word. I just watched until the red and blue lights vanished down the street. When I turned back inside, my father was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands, looking 20 years older. My mother was weeping hysterically on the floor. "Are you happy now?" my father growled, looking up at me with pure hatred in his eyes. "You've ruined him. He'll lose his job. He'll have a record. Who is going to marry him now? Who is going to carry on our family line?" "The family line you're so obsessed with is built on theft and blackmail," I said, looking down at them without a shred of pity. "If that's the line you're worried about, it deserves to end." I turned to Julia, who was quietly gathering her designer purse, the one I now knew had been bought with my own money. "As for you, Julia," I said, my voice dripping with icy calm, "you wanted your $10 back. You got it, but I'm going to need the rest of my money. The civil lawsuit for defamation and cyberbullying will be served to you by Monday morning. I hope your precious heir has a good college fund, because you're going to need every penny of it to pay my legal fees." Julia's face drained of color. "You can't sue me." "I didn't know. I was just told by Alan. You posted my personal information, called me disgusting names, and accused me of incestuous behavior in a group chat with over 30 of my extended relatives," I said. "You didn't care about the truth then. You just wanted to destroy me. Now you get to pay for it." Without waiting for another word, I walked out of the house, drove back to my apartment, and locked the door behind me. For the first time in years, the air in my home felt clean. The next morning, the Home Sweet Home group chat was a war zone. The relatives who had spent the previous day berating me, calling me shameless and improper, had completely flipped the script. Now that the truth was out, and now that Alan had been arrested, the hypocrisy of my extended family was on full display. Aunt Mary. Oh my, I always knew there was something off about Alan. How could he do something so wicked to his own sister? "Sophia, dear, are you okay? If you need a place to stay, my door is always open. Uncle Mark, Maggie, Philip, how could you raise a son like this? And to think, you tried to force Sophia to give him her apartment. That's practically robbery. Aunt Philippa. And that Julia girl. She was so arrogant yesterday, acting like a queen just because she's pregnant. Turns out she's just a gold digger who got scammed by a broke liar. Serves her right." I scrolled through the messages with a detached sense of amusement. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I opened the group settings, changed the name of the group from Home Sweet Home to the Hypocrites Club, and promptly left the group chat. I blocked every single aunt, uncle, and cousin who had ever joined in on the dog pile. By Monday morning, the fallout began in earnest. Alan's employer, a mid-sized logistics firm, caught wind of his arrest.
In the
Corporate world, an employee being charged with felony extortion and voyeurism involving a family member is a public relations nightmare. By 9 a.m., Alan was terminated from his position. But the real drama was happening at my parents' house. My mother called me 30 times before noon. When I finally answered, her voice was hoarse from crying. "Sophia, please. You have to drop the charges. The lawyer says if you don't cooperate, Alan could go to prison for up to 5 years.
he's sleeping on a
Concrete floor, Sophia. He's your brother. He should have thought about the concrete floor before he took photos of his sister in the shower." I said flatly. "We'll pay you back," my mother begged. "Every cent he took from you. We'll sell the old car. We'll take out a loan." "With what credit, Mom?" I asked. "You and Dad have been living beyond your means for years to support Alan's lifestyle. You don't have the money to pay me back $184,500. And even if you did, money doesn't buy back my privacy. If you do this, we will disown you." My father's voice suddenly boomed over the speaker, having snatched the phone from my mother. "You will no longer be a part of this family. You are a cold-blooded, heartless viper. You can't disown someone who has already left." I replied quietly and hung up the phone. I blocked their numbers too. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered it, expecting a lawyer, but instead it was Julia. Her voice was entirely devoid of the smug, arrogant tone she had used just days before. She sounded desperate, almost breathless. "Sophia, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, Julia. My lawyer will be in touch."
wait.
"Please don't hang up," she cried out. "It's about Alan."
And the baby.
"I made a mistake. I didn't know he was broke, Sophia. I swear to you, he told me he owned your apartment, that he was the one paying your bills. He told me his family was wealthy and that you were just a greedy parasite who refused to help him. And you believed him without looking at a single bank statement." I asked, leaning back in my office chair. "You were very quick to paint me as a seductress over a $10 coffee." "I was jealous," she confessed, her voice cracking. "He kept talking about you, comparing me to you, saying how smart and successful his sister was. I thought you were trying to control him, but I was wrong."
Eva.
Broken off the engagement. "I packed my bags and left their house yesterday." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so the precious heir doesn't need his father anymore?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Julia spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "There is no precious heir, Sophia." I sat up straight in my chair. "What do you mean?" I was pregnant," Julia stammered. "But I miscarried 3 weeks ago.
I
Didn't tell Alan or your parents because I knew they only cared about me because of the baby boy. Your parents were treating me like royalty, and Alan was finally treating me like I mattered. I was terrified that if I told them the truth, they would throw me out. I was planning to pretend the pregnancy was still viable until I could pressure Alan into marrying me and putting my name on the title of your apartment. Once the apartment was in my name, it wouldn't matter if I lost the baby later." A chill ran down my spine. The sheer, calculated malice of it was breathtaking. My parents had been ready to ruin their own daughter's life, to strip her of her only asset, all for a fake pregnancy and a non-existent grandson. "You're a monster, Julia," I said softly. "You and Alan deserve each other. I'm telling you this because I want to make a deal," Julia pleaded. "If I give you the chat logs of Alan planning the extortion with me, yes, he told me he was going to use something private to force you to give up the apartment, will you drop the civil lawsuit against me? I don't have the money for a lawyer, Sophia. If you sue me, I'll go bankrupt." I let out a long, slow breath. "Send me the chat logs. If they prove Alan was the mastermind behind the real estate extortion, I'll instruct my lawyer to remove you from the civil suit. But if you lie to me even once, I will make sure you lose every penny you have. I'll send them right now. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you." 10 minutes later, my phone flooded with PDFs of chat exports. As I scrolled through them, my blood ran cold. "Alan, don't worry about the apartment. I have leverage on Sophia. I have some photos of her that she would die before letting anyone see. Once we're engaged, we'll demand the apartment. If she says no, I'll threaten her with the photos. She'll hand over the title within a day." "Julia, are you sure? What if she calls the police?" "Alan, she won't. She's too proud. She cares too much about what the family thinks of her. Trust me, I know my sister. She's a pushover. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling slightly. A pushover. He had spent his entire life taking from me, interpreting my patience as weakness, my silence as consent, and my love as a license to exploit. He truly believed that because we were family, there was no line he couldn't cross. I forwarded the PDF files directly to the detective handling Alan's criminal
Case.
this wasn't just extortion anymore, it was premeditated conspiracy to commit grand theft and extortion. Alan was no longer looking at probation.
He was looking at serious prison time.
3 months later, the courtroom was cold and smelled of floor wax and old
Paper.
I sat on the prosecutor's side of the courtroom, dressed in a sharp, navy blue
Suit.
Across the room, sitting at the defense table, was Alan. He looked unrecognizable. He had lost at least 20 pounds. His hair was greasy and unkempt, and the expensive designer suit he usually wore was replaced by a cheap, oversized gray suit provided by a public defender. My parents sat behind him in the gallery. My mother was silently weeping into a tissue, while my father stared at the floor, refusing to look in my direction. Julia was nowhere to be found. She had fled the city weeks ago, leaving Alan to face the music alone. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, reviewed the evidence on her
Desk.
the chat logs, the forensic recovery of the deleted shower photos from Alan's phone, and the extensive bank statements showing years of financial coercion were all laid out in front of her. Mr. Isaac, the judge said, her voice echoing off the high ceilings of the
Courtroom.
the evidence presented against you is overwhelming. Not only did you engage in the disgusting and illegal act of voyeurism against your own sister, but you then weaponized those images in a calculated, premeditated attempt to extort her out of her home. The lack of remorse shown in your communication is deeply disturbing. Alan stared at his hands, his shoulders shaking. In light of the conspiracy charges and the premeditated nature of the extortion, the judge continued, this court sentences you to 3 years in state prison, followed by 2 years of mandatory probation.
Furthermore, you are
ordered to pay full restitution to the victim in the amount of $184,500 to be collected through wage garnishment and asset seizure upon your release. A loud, strangled sob escaped my mother's throat. She collapsed forward, her head buried in her hands. My father reached out to comfort her, but his own hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold her. Alan looked back at them, his eyes wide with terror as the bailiff stepped forward to lead him away. For a brief second, his eyes met mine. There was no anger left in them, only a hollow, desperate plea for mercy. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing. The brother I had loved, the one I had tried so hard to protect and support over the years, had never existed. He was a phantom created by my own naivety and my parents' toxic favoritism. The man standing before me was just a stranger paying the price for his own greed. As Alan was led through the side door, the heavy metal lock clicking shut behind him, I stood up and walked out of the courtroom. My parents intercepted me in the hallway. Sophia. My father blocked my path, his face pale and sunken. Are you satisfied now? Your brother is going to prison. Our family is ruined. We have to sell our house to pay off his debts and the restitution.
will have nowhere to live.
Is this what you wanted? I stopped and looked at him. For years, his anger would have made me flinch. Now, it felt as insignificant as a draft of cold wind. I didn't send Alan to prison, Dad. His own greed did, I said quietly.
And as
For your house. You spent years telling me that family is supposed to sacrifice everything for each other. I guess it's your turn to sacrifice for the son you loved so much. Sophia, please. My mother begged, reaching out to grab my sleeve. Her fingers were trembling. We're your parents. We made mistakes, we know.
but
We're still your family. You can't just leave us with nothing. I gently but firmly pulled my sleeve from her grasp. My family died the day you asked me to give up my home to please a liar. I
said,
I wish you both the best of luck. But from this day on, you no longer have a daughter. I turned and walked down the long, marble corridor of the courthouse, the sound of my heels clicking rhythmically against the stone. With every step, the weight that had pressed down on my shoulders for the last 5 years seemed to lift, evaporating into the crisp morning air outside. 6 months later, the balcony of my new apartment overlooked the harbor. The city lights danced across the dark water, casting a warm, peaceful glow over the living room.
It
Was a larger place, bought with the proceeds from selling my old apartment and a portion of the restitution funds that the court-ordered liquidators had managed to claw back from Alan's seized accounts. I sat on the outdoor lounge chair, holding a freshly made iced latte. My phone sat on the small table next to me. It didn't flash with 99 plus unread messages. It didn't buzz with toxic accusations or desperate pleas for money. The only notification on the screen was a simple, quiet update from my banking app. Monthly savings goal achieved. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my drink. It was rich, sweet, and perfectly
cold.
As I looked out over the quiet harbor, I smiled. It was just a $10 iced latte, but to me, it tasted like freedom.